Welcome to another episode of In Your Business. Today we're going to interview and learn from an entrepreneur from Hagerstown, Indiana, Gary Schuette. And I'll tell you, Gary's quite interesting. As I've done my research, as I do when I have a guest come on the show, and we learn a little bit more about Gary and find out he's quite the entrepreneur. He's not just going to have one business, he's going to have multiples. And he's going to tell us about how that happened, but also some of the adventures he's gone through as he's experienced entrepreneurship. So Gary, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tim.
Gary, what I like to do is on each show, when I get to know the entrepreneur, I truly like to get to know you. And so a part of that is you're growing up. And so as a little guy, what were you wanting to do when you grew up?
Oh, I think as a little guy, I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do. I was born and raised in Hagerstown. Parents were in agribusiness at that point. So, you know, I've been in the business world growing up my entire life. And ultimately had a goal of doing something in the business world. You know, growing up as a teenager, had no clue.
So as you were a teenager growing up, you were preparing to go to college. And when you went to college, you can tell me where you went and tell me what you studied.
I ended up going to Purdue. It was a consumer sciences and retail management degree. Was in the School of Management at first, decided that sitting at a desk all day was not going to be what I wanted to do with the rest of my life or my career. So that's when I transferred into the consumer sciences and retail side of Purdue.
Okay, so then you earned that degree, and then right out of college, what did you do?
Coming through college, I worked for a chain of hardware stores based in Lafayette. So I was with them for a couple years out of college, within a couple different cities that they had stores in.
Okay. And then you graduated and moved back to Hagerstown, is that correct?
I was gone for about 10 years, 6 of those after college. Moved back to Hagerstown in 1996.
Okay. And what brought you back to Hagerstown?
Had the opportunity to get back to Hagerstown. In that 6-year period, I had kind of traveled all over the state of Indiana. I'd been in Evansville, Fort Wayne, Kokomo. So I'd been on about every corner and segment of Indiana. Had the opportunity to come back home and purchase the hardware store that was in downtown Hagerstown.
So it was for sale, and you learned about it and said, I'm going to do this?
Yes, pretty much. You know, I had worked there a few summers, going through high school and college, so that had kind of given me the bug. Going through college, worked in a hardware chain. So, you know, I knew that industry and knew what I was doing and getting myself into kind of at that point. Okay. You know, so bought the store there in 96.
Okay, so you were very young into the business to be buying the store. Was that interesting to try to get the financing and to try to get things taken care of?
You know, it was challenging. You know, I was a 26, 27-year-old venturing out, quitting his full-time corporate job, moving, buying a business. And yeah, it was very scary, it was very trying. It took us about a year to put it together, which isn't that long, but it was a long time for me at that point. Because I was trying to get it done and trying to coordinate still working and maintaining that job. But yeah, it was a challenge.
Gary, I think to any entrepreneur, a year is a long time.
Yes.
You get excited, you get this idea, and I mean, people, when they share their ideas with me, they're ready to go now. Mm-hmm. They're ready to go tomorrow and next week. And 30 days, they're complaining if they're not finished. So a year, that's a long time.
Yes.
And I'm sure you're excited.
It was good. You know, it was a fun time. Can still remember the day we signed the paperwork and sat out on the store and thought, what have I done? You know, because then it's reality. You know, up until that day, it's not reality, it's a dream. So sitting down, signing the paperwork, going back and going, okay, what have I actually done and what have I got myself into?
Okay, so this was your first acquisition as an entrepreneur, right?
Yes.
You acquired, and this was Nettle Creek Hardware at the time?
Uh-huh, yep.
So you continued the same name. What's the time frame? When did they open?
There's been a store there probably for 75 years. Okay. Had lots of different owners throughout time, but there had been a hardware store in that location for many years. Okay,
and I like that. Whenever you can continue the same, name and keep it going, that way it keeps that history there.
Yep.
So you acquired it, and you brought the employees with you?
Really, there was no employees. It was a retiring owner and a part-time employee that was going to retire as well. So it was really me, myself, and I.
Wow.
In the first 6 months, that's pretty much what I ran with, and then I hired my first full-time employee at that point.
So that was in 96, is that
Yes.
correct? So in 96, you acquired it. You were the person. You unlocked the doors and sold, locked the doors and went home, just you. And then you acquired one more person. Today, how many employees do you have?
In our height of our busy seasons, which is our spring selling season, we'll top out 14, 15 people.
That's pretty substantial growth.
Yeah, and a mix of full-time, part-times, and some of them are just a seasonal at that point. But at our height, yeah, we'll be at 14 or 15.
Okay. So you grew up in a family of business, and so you're around business, and you understood business. When you acquired the hardware store, were you ready? Did you know what you were getting into?
Yeah, I don't think anybody ever knows truly what they're getting into once it's yours and it's the bottom line is yours and it's all your control, because you're in charge of everything, and still to today, ultimately I'm in charge of the bottom line and the final decisions. Yes, I have a lot of good people that make those decisions and make decisions for me, but ultimately, yeah, it's yours and you've got to make the best decision because it not only affects you, it's going to affect your employees. So you have to be concerned about that.
Absolutely. And I mean, and one of the things I teach business, but I also teach econ. And when I'm teaching economics, people have to understand that we start with our own and then we go into our community. And so you're not only affecting your economic situation, but your employees, and that affects your community and into your state. So you're making a huge impact. And then your consumers, the customers that are coming in and buying the product, I mean, you got to keep things there for them.
Yes, you always have to have the right product mix.
So did you also grow the store, or is it the same size as when you acquired it?
In 96, when we bought that existing store uptown, we were about 3,000 square feet. We were in downtown Hagerstown, old brick, narrow buildings. And we started out in 2 of those buildings. And before we moved in 99, we acquired the next door building. And so we had, put another 1,500 square foot to us. And then in 2000, we were able to move and expand our footprint, and we're sitting at about 14,000 square foot of retail space today.
Okay. So I think things went well for you. You acquired it, and you made it happen. You've grown it. You've got the employees. But let's talk about your entrepreneurial ventures, because, again, as I talk around and ask around, people say, oh, Gary's quite the entrepreneur. And so you didn't stop with a hardware store.
Being in a small town, small rural market, you kind of have to be masters of a lot of different things. Your consumer base is very local. They don't have a lot of other choices, so you're always looking for other things to fill their needs. Probably our first venture out after the hardware store, when we moved in 2000 to where we're at today, we acquired a laundromat at that point. So the laundry facilities for the town were there, and that's what we had there. We've also done a Verizon wireless store. And we were an agent for them for about 10 years.
Okay. So let's talk about that laundromat for a moment. Was it for sale? Is that why you acquired it, or did you think, I want to go after it?
It's actually in the same building that the hardware store's in. So when we bought the other hardware store in town, it kind of came with it. But again, it's a good needed service in town. That business is needed, but yet it would not survive on its own as a standalone business in town. But as a side for the hardware store, it's a perfect fit.
Okay, so that's a good fit. In entrepreneurship, we're always trying to solve a problem. And so you're able to solve a problem with a perfect fit. That makes sense. And then you said Verizon store?
Yeah, we sold cellular service for about 10 years. Right in the height of its heyday, when not everybody had a cell phone. So, we were with Verizon for about 10 years as an agent and sold a lot of cell phones in the market.
Okay, so that was timing.
Yes.
A lot of times, I know a lot of these businesses are you got to get in at the right time and know how long you're going to be there. And so you had good timing. Beyond that, has there been some other ventures, or?
Other ventures that we've tried, we have done a standalone Verizon store in another town. We had it for about 6 years. Got in and got out of that one. The other major thing that we do is we also own the car wash in Hagerstown, which is right in the same parking lot as the hardware store. The gentleman was ready to retire and sell it. And again, it's a natural fit for us in the parking lot. It's literally, 300 foot from our front door. It's easy for us to maintain, to service, and to help somebody if they need help with something over there. And again, it's a needed service.
Okay. So are you able to share employees, or do you have to have designated employees for each of these entities?
We pretty much share everything. I mean, we all kind of do anything and everything. So we're all masters of none of it, but we all learn little bits and pieces and take care of it all.
Okay. So when I'm teaching entrepreneurship in the classroom, a lot of times we're talking about everything from the accounting to the finance, the marketing, the management. I'm assuming you have to do all that. Now you get people and find people's expertise, I'm sure, but let's talk about some of those things. When it comes to things like the accounting.
I do employ a full-time office manager. That is her sole designation, is take care of the office, the accounts payables, the accounts receivables, take care of all the HR, the payroll functions. Can I do it all? Absolutely. But that is her main goal and job every day, is to keep all that on track and to keep everything in line. And I've had a full-time office manager now probably for 13, 14 years.
Okay.
There's been times that I've went without one and I've had to do it all, and that just makes it's too much. As an entrepreneur or as a business owner, you can't do it all. You have to have the people in place and trust them to do the jobs.
Sure. So I'm assuming for you to have been an entrepreneur these years, you find it exciting.
It is very exciting. It's a new venture every day. You never know what's going to come across the counter. You never know what questions you're going to get asked. And it's problem solving, especially in our retail hardware. Consumers come to us with a problem and they're looking to us to fix their problem for them.
And how do you know that? Just from experience? I mean, as far as how to fix their problem?
It comes down to it's just years of experience. We bring a new person on board. Our first words out of my mouth pretty much are, you're not going to know everything. I don't expect you to know everything. I still don't know everything. Eventually, you'll pick up the basics and you'll learn how to problem solve. And you may not know how to do it, but you know what we've got in the store that'll help solve their problem. So a lot of it is just problem solving and thinking. You have to have some creativity at times, and you also have to have knowledge.
Okay. So I can tell you do get excited about entrepreneurship, but why? What is it that excites you about it?
I think it's just taking care of the consumer. It is making somebody's life better, making their home better, solving their problem, fixing their issues. And then you get to see those customers again. The one thing, we see our customers, maybe on a daily basis. Lots of other retail stores never see their customers, but except for maybe once a month or once every 6 months. We see a lot of our customers on a daily basis. So, they're not only customers, they are friends.
Sure. And I like to share this as we're talking. Other people will learn from this because I want to encourage entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. But I also always like to be very transparent. And what would you say some of the biggest challenges have been as an entrepreneur?
A lot of the challenges are self-made, because as an entrepreneur, you want to do it all. So it's going to take dedication and it's going to take hours. Your work week is not going to be 8 to 4 or 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, especially if you're going into the retail world. It's a 7-day-a-week world anymore. The consumer wants to have it available. Yes, could we all expand hours? Yes. But there's that fine line to have your employees have a life as well and not have 24-hour service for everybody. So that's a challenge, because you're meeting those demands. The other challenge anymore is help. The labor pool in this market is very tight. So, it's always a struggle to find those great people that you want on your team.
Sure, I can see that. The other thing is change. In the time period you've been in business, which I guess I should do the math, but it's been several years. You said 96 to now. Mm-hmm. And we've seen a lot of change. the internet has been a huge part of that change and bringing into the social media. Has that affected your business, and has your business adapted to that?
You know, we all have to adapt to it. Yes, you know, the internet has really changed the retail landscape. In the hardware world, you know, we're fixing a problem, we're solving an issue. It's things that you most of the time can't wait on. You're not going to jump out to a website and order it and wait even a day to fix your leaking faucet or your broke lawnmower, you know. And a lot of times, you know, those aren't parts that you can readily look up and go, oh, that's exactly what I need. Sometimes you've got to look and touch and feel to see that that's what's going to solve your problem. So, you know, yes, the internet hurts some of our product categories, you know, and we've exited some of those categories that are just like, you know, that's an internet item anymore. People don't shop for that. They just order it online. So, yeah, the internet has changed lots of things and hurt lots of small retail.
Okay. So the other thing I want to ask you about is, as you've gone into these different businesses and tried different things, and that's fun. That's what we do as entrepreneurs. Are you a sole proprietor? Do you do a partnership? How do you make that work?
You know, pretty much I'm a sole proprietor. You know, hardware, you know, everything comes down to me. I do have one other venture. We have a retail boot store in downtown Hagerstown, you know, that I have a partner in, and that we take care of that together. So, you know, we're always looking for different things.
Well, and that brings me to a question, because in class, a lot of times we talk about the ownership. And sole proprietor has its pluses and minuses. I mean, it's all you. But in partnerships, there's a whole different animal to work with, because you and I can be friends, but it doesn't mean we're great business partners.
Correct.
We could be great business partners, not be friends. And so do you have any advice or anything that you've gone through as you've looked at partnerships?
You know, I guess I'm not a big fan of partnerships in the beginning. You know, you have to get to know the individuals, you know, because you can have that dynamic that doesn't work well together, and it's always a battle. We've seen lots of partnerships fall apart over the years in many different industries and magazine articles and shows that, you know, the partners can't agree on anything anymore, so it's a constant battle. So the good thing about a sole proprietor is, you know, ultimately it is my decision, you know, and that's what we're going to do. So sole proprietor, it all falls on your shoulders, and when it flops, it's totally yours, or when it's successful, it's totally yours.
Sure. Well, it makes it an interesting time for entrepreneurs. There's no question about that. So how do you see opportunities in the future? Do you continue expanding, or where do you see the future going?
You know, I think at this point, you know, we're not going to expand a whole lot more. You never say never, though. So we're always out looking for those opportunities. You know, we're ready for those opportunities to approach us per se, but out looking actively for them or trying to come up with the next thing we want to do, no. You know, pretty much serve our customer base, what we've got going, take care of them, and kind of maintain our status quo. You know, will product mixes and categories change? Oh, absolutely. You know, as you've said, you know, things change over time, and you have to be able to adapt.
Sure. And one of the changes that I've witnessed, and I mean, in addition to teaching business, I also teach econ. And so from an economist standpoint, I see the economy affecting business and communities. And from '96 to today, we've had different cycles. And can you speak to that a little bit, to what the economy's done? And Hagerstown might even be totally different, because it is a small community, and sometimes one business, two or three businesses, can have a huge impact on the local economy.
You know, in hardware, as I said previously, you know, we're in a fix-it type business or a repair type business. Yes, the economy affects us. You know, when the economy is bad and down, you know, people are going to fix up their older things. You know, they're not going to spend money on new. They're simply going to have to fix their old. When times are good, they might not bother fixing it. They might put a new $200 faucet on their sink instead of buying the $5 part. So, you know, we're not recession-proof at all, but, you know, our product mix and our sales kind of change based on what the economy is doing. You know, coming out of really bad times when people are stuck at home, you'll see lots of home improvements of new paint. You know, we're going to stain the deck. We're going to do things to improve. If we're having to stay home and not take vacations, we're going to at least spruce up a little bit, you know, and spend $100 or $200 on an outdoor improvement.
Sure, and that's good for your business.
Correct.
So that's interesting. That's one of the dynamics that's hard for me to get some students to understand, is that if somebody's having a challenged economy, then sometimes that can be good for a local business. And so those are interesting points. What about your employees? Because you did say that sometimes labor is difficult to get, and getting the right employees. Have you seen that kind of shift as well?
You know, it's still a very challenging market. I can pretty much say we're always looking for the next employee, even if we don't have the fit or the need at the moment. We use a couple high school kids, we use a couple of college students, got a couple full-time. You know, in that whole mix, I've also got a retired gentleman that retired and, you know, put his application in, and I think I called him before he got home, because you don't find those individuals very often that want, you know, a couple days a week. And been a great fit for us. He's been with me about 2 years now. And so, yeah, it's very challenging at times to find the right labor pool.
And those are things you've had to learn with experience, I'm sure. I mean, you probably didn't know to have that kind of mix in the beginning.
Oh, no. You know, you don't know that, you know, what that mix is going to be at all. And it could change. You know, it's changed and it evolves over the years. So you just are always kind of looking.
So if you could go back to '96 when you bought the hardware store, is there anything you would have done differently as you've had experience today?
I don't think I would do anything different. You know, you always have to be willing to try things. You always have to be willing for new ventures. You always have to take criticism. You know, your consumers are going to be your ultimate critics and tell you what they don't like and what they do like about your business. And if, you know, if you're selling something they don't like or they're not buying, you know, don't be afraid to close it out and move on. Take your lumps. You know, we all have product flops in our stores, and you may think it's a great thing, but they don't, and vice versa. You know, when you're looking at new products, you've got to have that open mind, and at times I think we get really narrow in our focus, you know, as buyers or as owners. Oh, I don't like that. Well, just because you don't like it doesn't mean there's not going to be consumers out there that have the same opinion. So you've got to keep your eyes open and your mind open to new ideas and products.
So, but that brings me to a question about your inventory. So how do you find your inventory? You're the buyer. You're the ultimate buyer. You're going out and buying all of it and hoping to resell it.
You know, we attend 2 major trade shows a year, both spring and fall, where we'll look at new products there, new categories. You know, our supplier has great shows and they'll come up with great product mixes for us. And that product mix doesn't always work, you know, because they're trying to tailor that mix for every store across the country. So, you know, we may pick and choose half of that product mix to bring into our store, because, you know, we are a rural market. So what sells in downtown Hagerstown may not even sell in Richmond. You know, it's a totally different market. So we'll tailor that. We also have sales reps that come by, you know, occasionally and sell us items. But pretty much our 2 trade shows a year are where we're going to get most of our new product ideas.
Okay. And that's probably great, because there's probably people you work with that you've worked with for all these years that can kind of guide you and tell you why things are changing and how they're changing?
Correct. You know, they're the ones that are looking at it. They're buying it on a corporate level or a nationwide level. And they work with the vendors and know what's coming down the line within a year or 2. You know, there's still lots of legislation coming on light bulbs even. You know, and we're getting ready to do a new reset on light bulbs. Yeah, the LED technology has changed greatly in the last 3 years from when we really first started seeing it till today, and it's just ever evolving. So they know what the big picture is and they feed it to us.
And the fun part about that as the entrepreneur is you make those changes, you change those displays, they're yours. Unless you get supply that's going to help you with it, they're yours. You got to pay for that.
Yes, you know, we pay for everything that comes in the door. You know, it's ours, and they don't really care if it sells or not. So we have to be the ultimate gatekeeper of what you bring into your inventory. So you have to be very cautious but yet very open to doing new things.
And I'm sure the other thing is always thinking about your community, because your community depends on you, whether it be donations, sponsorships, whether it be employment, or making sure that they've got the parts they need.
Correct. You've always got to look at that. And things you do as an entrepreneur, no matter what your business is, are going to affect others. And it's going to roll out into the community, especially when you're in retail. And in a core retail like hardware is, that's a needed item. It's not a want item. It's a needed item that people have the needs for. So, if you decide to get out of something or get into something, okay, what's that going to do to the consumers here in this market?
Sure. Gary, the last question I'll ask you is about your hours. How many hours a week do you think you're working?
Oh, we don't even keep track of that anymore. We're open 7 days a week, and I can tell you I'm pretty much there 7 days a week. I will occasionally take a half a day off or a little bit of time off here and there, but entrepreneurship is not the easy way out of your 8 to 5 job.
So you work a lot of hours and you enjoy every one of them.
We enjoy most of them. There are some that you don't.
Okay. All right, Gary, thanks for coming on the show.
Not a problem. Thanks, Tim.
All right. This concludes another episode of In Your Business. It's always fun for me to meet new entrepreneurs, and I'm going to go out to Gary's store and let him show me around and actually see what he's doing. But it's kind of fun because he's been doing this for so many years. He's made such an impact on a small community, and he was excited to come back and do that. And he makes a difference in a community, and that's what we try to do with entrepreneurship, is make a difference. Thank you again for watching In Your Business.